they're not speaking for the majority, only for their own group. And for us, we've always been active. Even
Which really...
Being Brown Beret has taught me about commitment. Commitment to my family, commitment to my parents, to my kids, commitment to my community, commitment to my job.
our people.
Brown Beret stands for commitment.
Well, that's taking a slightly different track, but it's also consistent with the purpose.
Yes.
It's also consistent with the idea of survival, and we need to survive. Our identity helps us to survive, and the Brown Berets promote the Chicano identity. And for example, the Chicano identity became strong in World War II, where something like 40,000 Chicanos died in World War II, but their identity helped many of them to survive through that Holocaust. Same thing in Vietnam. The Chicano soldiers in Vietnam, 7,000 Chicanos died in Vietnam, but the Chicano identity helped many of them to survive. And so once again, we need to grasp onto the Chicano identity, which is the core of the community. When I say the core of the community is there's 25 million Mexican Americans and about 1 million Chicanos, but that's the core. And we need to keep the core going. And of the Chicano core, the Brown Berets are the core of the Chicano community. We need to keep that going. Without a core, everything dies out.
And I feel that the generations that sit here right now are dedicated from each generation gone up to the past and to the future. It's going to continue.
Well, that really leads me to the second part of this program, because what I'm going to do is have a conversation with the generations that succeeded and are current to you, because, and I've deliberately kept them out of this conversation, because I want to hear what kinds of goals and what kinds of searches they are on. I want to hear what kinds of social programs they believe are needed in the community and in the larger society, and how they can be enacted, and then also how they can inspire the current generation. What needs to be done to get the current generation engaged in these kinds of social programs? There's a dearth, there's an absence now for all of the young people that you can recruit. I hate to say this, but it's not enough, because we still have these serious social problems, as you pointed out, very serious social problems. And there've got to be some innovative ways to grab hold of this next generation and to engage them in the work ahead. That's why I asked you about who are your models, who were you trying to emulate when you started the Brown Berets, when you started Young Chicanos for Community Action. And for many of you, there wasn't a model. You had to create your own.
The need forces to get involved in movement with the Chicanos.
The which forces?
Not,
The need.
The need
The need to
yeah.
survive.
The need to survive.
Change.
Yeah. So now, what we have to figure out with the younger generation is how are they going to
Inspired.
move forward? What are the key words? What are the sound bites that are going to inspire them? Is La Causa, does that have the same meaning for them?
Just talk to them.
That's what we're going to hear. Thank you very, very much for participating. This has been extremely enlightening.
Thank you, Rona.
Thank you, Rona. Viva Raza.
Thank you. Thank you, Ralph. Okay.
Now, who do you want? 5, 4, 3, 2.
Okay. We're in the part 2 of this conversation. This is the part where I'm having a conversation with the younger generations of Brown Berets. And the issue remains in unfortunately, in some of the same dimensions that it started in 1967. We're in Los Angeles, California. We're in a city that has political leadership who have, as we used to say, Hispanic surnames. We have institutions that are led by African Americans and Hispanics, and yet a study of the Los Angeles City Schools that just came out, was just done this summer, shows that, or purports to say, that you can predict school failure and dropouts on the basis of race and ethnicity. That African Americans, Hispanics, and Asians are not finishing high school, are failing the grades, they call them school failures. I think they're proof of the failure of the schools. But what we have to deal with now is that the situation statistically is worse than it was in 1967. And to add to that right now, in a study that recently came out, let's see if I've got it here. This was a very important study that was done by the Justice Policy Institute in Washington, D.C., sponsored by the Soros Foundation. And they found that gang violence is statistically significantly greater in Los Angeles than in New York. New York has a similar demographic to Los Angeles, but the difference is that New York has employed social programs to prevent gang violence, which is an echo of what the Brown Berets did starting in 1967. Los Angeles has employed police enforcement, and the gang violence escalates. The black on brown violence is at a point where they can't even build prisons that will contain both African Americans and Hispanics. And in the prisons, there's gang violence that depends on, you know, what country your family was from. It's not even just, you know, Latinos against whites. It's not even just Latinos, blacks against Latinos. It is broken down to people from El Salvador, people from Honduras, people from Guatemala, and they're not associated with each other. And they're fighting each other. And they're seeing each other as the enemy. Now, the question for you is, where does that future, what does that argue about the future that you are facing? You who are young, you who are committed, and how can that future, what can you do through the Brown Berets, or through the idea of the Brown Berets, to alter the present and change the future? So, let me introduce you. First of all, starting at my far right, you are?
Andy Viscata.
And when did you become a Brown Beret?
Became a Brown Beret in February 2006. And
And what led you to become a Brown Beret?
the walkouts in 2006 and the explosion of my being there.
Can you speak up a little bit louder?
Yeah.
Because the microphone is up there.
The expulsions of the walkouts that I got for the punishment, and because I got kicked out, so it was unjust, so I just thought that it was better to go to the Brown Berets, you know, to have a better thinking for the Brown Berets and to get other people to know how they're being treated in schools.
Okay. All right. And your name is?
My name is Anthony Topete.
And when did you become a Brown Beret?
I organized the Antelope Valley chapter of the Brown Berets in October of 2006.
2006.
2006.
Had you been a member before that?
In college, when I was LA College, I was a member. While I was in school, and I didn't stay in school that long. So I'm getting back into it.
Okay. All right, let's move along here. We have I think she's the organizer of the Los Angeles chapter.
LA chapter. My name is Lorena Jaramillo Rosenberg, and
Could you speak up a little bit louder? I want to make sure we've got you on.
my name is Lorena Jaramillo. I am the organizer for LA chapter.
Okay, and what led you to become a Brown Beret?
Well, I've been working with Brown Beret agenda for 20 years, but I decided to put this uniform in, come out in front line because the needs. It's extremely need. You talk about the dropouts. Well, there is programs that don't reach the children. That's why they're dropouts. And you talk about gangs, there is a programs they don't reach to our children, like prevention, remediation, intervention programs. Our kids not reaching those programs. And our kids not reaching the educational curriculum, the same curriculum programs as in other ones. Like, let's example, we have different type of teachers, different kind schools. Some schools, they need more needs. Some teachers needs more staff development. There's a lot of issues why some kids do better than others. But let me tell you, the truth is some kids are being discriminated. They're being treated unfairly. That's why I become a Brown Beret. And because something very important, some persons who work right now in the education system has been victimized. My child is why I become a Brown Beret. And I'm not finished. I just started.
Okay, and next to you?
My name is Frances Jaramillo Rosenberg, president of the LA chapter, the student-led chapter. And I became a Brown Beret due to the social injustice in the LAUSD in high school. The walkouts in particular that happened in 2006 for immigration. And I've been active, and I grew up in the environment of knowing my rights and protecting the rights of my people. Because my mom's been an activist for many years, so for like forever I've gone to marches. I'm 6 years old, banners. So
I forgot to say I'm a labor activist. I've been
You're labor activist. Which is the direction that many of the Brown Berets have taken over time. I mean, they didn't start out as labor activists, but many of them have become organizers. Back in 1967, many of us were drawn to the Brown Berets because we were already involved in Huelga. Huelga. It was the Cesar Chavez's movement, the
Yes.
grape pickers. And the Brown Berets, Chavez had tried to organize in Los Angeles, and he said that Los Angeles was the grave of organizations, and organizing Mexican Americans was the tomb for organizers. So you get some idea of what it was like to try to organize in 1967. And yet, many of the original Brown Berets became activists in labor organizations. So, some of it they got from their beret experience, some of it they got because Huelga itself became such a powerful